It's my absolute pleasure to welcome Breisi to our VCE Day today. Breisi is currently an Agile coach working with ANZ, the new ways of working area specifically, and she's a digital transformation leader. So Breisi is passionate about creating organisational change that enables people to work together to solve problems. She's got a career spanning 20 years and she's been working with customers all that time, empathizing with their pain and using these insights to design and implement solutions that will help customers and not just meet their requirements. So she's developing high-performing Agile teams that are self-driven and motivated, work collaboratively, and always strive to improve the customer experience and innovation through challenges. So I'd like to warmly welcome Breisi and let her dictate and tell us how she works with Agile so that we can apply our teacher lens to it and look at how we might be able to help our school subjects and our students as well look at Agile in context. So thank you, Breisi.
Thanks, Janine. Thanks for having me as well. So I guess the session today is really about, it's not necessarily about Agile per se, but Agile, how it's seen in the industry. And like Janine mentioned, I've got 20 years in IT and 12 years in Agile. I'm currently coaching at ANZ, and I feel like I'm always learning and continuing improving and creating and sharing. And I think that's the essence of Agile, and it really suits my personality, and I'm hoping majority of people's personalities, and being able to bring this to the industry to work is probably one of the greatest joys that I've found through Agile. Just to give you a little bit of an understanding about Agile, Agile is a sort of like a project management methodology, I guess, if in the lightest sense of the way of what it is. It's quite a set of practices and toolkits and mindset even. And it has definitely taken off since the early 2000s, probably started before in the late 1990s. But if you can see, this is a really simple trend line of searches around Agile and Scrum, and it's something that has literally gone up and up and up until this year, and you can actually tell the difference. You just reflecting back on how you used to see websites and software, and the way that it even just looks, compare it to what it can and do today, and how it's actually changed, because it's a methodology that was applied primarily to software development, and it's really around and putting things out in front of people and getting that fast feedback and that quick turnaround and delivering incremental value to people, to clients, to stakeholders, and to be able to get that feedback. And why it's become such a prominent part in the industry is because of the fact that it's actually achieved massive results. You can tell by the software. I wanted to also talk about the fact that the rise of Agile in the industry is actually spreading. It's spreading in terms of where it's actually found. The concept of new ways of working is now, at ANZ, for example, is it's not just in the software and IT areas. It's moved across to a whole lot of the financial areas, product management and marketing, and a whole suite of areas and teams are starting to merge to create value. So one of the key things, and this is a reference from the Harvard Business Review, is that if the concept is intriguing around the possibilities that Agile rises. Like, what if a company could achieve positive returns, with 50% more new product introductions? What if marketing programs could generate 40% more customer inquiries? What if human resources could recruit 60% more of its highest priority targets? And all these things has brought, because all these things have been brought to IT, the opportunity in other parts of the companies has been is substantial, and it definitely is spreading. So the rationale for the reason why I'm telling you this is, it doesn't matter where your students go in the future. The concept of Agile, or a method or combination of Agile and other methods, is going to be in the workplace no matter where they head. They're also the digitization of all these other areas means that we're going to be working more and more closely with the business continuously. Quick look around. I might pause it just to have a quick question before I move into the State of Agile report to give you, is there any questions?
None at the moment, Breisi. We might pause again later on, and then we might answer those questions at the end.
No problems. So one of the interesting things that's happening in the industry is that 14 years ago, someone decided to start mapping the state of Agile, and they called it the State of Agile Report. And this year's the 14th one that they've done, and it's just a survey to thousands of companies across the world. And one of the things that they do measure is why people are adopting Agile, and what benefits they're getting from it. And the perception, I guess, of what people are getting closer and more aligned. It used to be that there were different perceptions, but the benefits were always this. The benefits were always that we were able to more and more manage changing priorities that are happening across the world. You can see that customers change their minds quite a lot. The competition changes and industry market turns. So the ability to switch and to move quickly with what is happening across the world to benefit yourself, the customers, the business, that is a really key benefit for the use of Agile, and the rationale for making smaller chunks of work that can be delivered to the market to test that market and bring it back in and make it adapt as you go. The other thing that is really critical with Agile is that project visibility becomes more and more, it's important, it's always important, but it's also the transparency and the conversations that Agile enables, creates visibility across projects and across the organization. Business and IT are becoming way more aligned. It is definitely, we can almost start to move away, like that line is not there anymore in areas. The delivery speed and the time to market is much more improved. And you would think, not surprisingly, the team morale is also improved because teams are collaborating, because their ideas are being introduced into the products, because they are delivering quicker, and they're getting the feeling of satisfaction that comes with actually putting something into production, that's going to be of benefit to your customers. So that's why the industry is seeing as benefits of adopting Agile. And they were polled as to what were the main ceremonies or the main things that they did, Agile techniques, to actually achieve these benefits. And the reason I'm showing you this is because I'm going to lead into what types of Agile technologies or Agile frameworks are in place in the industry at the moment. But these are all very simple and fundamental parts of Agile, which are things like the daily stand-up, retrospectives, sprint and iteration planning, short iterations, and Kanban. So daily stand-ups are things that are basically conversations that happen every day with the team, that they say what they did yesterday usually and what they're planning to do today. It's not a status report. It's just a quick update on what they're doing. Just to basically let everyone know if they're having any blockers, that they may need to have a conversation with somebody, and to just reorganize themselves and recenter and focus. They're usually only about 15 minutes. With retrospectives, it's another major component where every 2 weeks or 3 weeks, depending on the length of the time box or the sprint, they are looking backwards and reflecting as to what can be improved, what went well, what could be improved, and maybe take some actions on improvement. So they're continuously evolving, continuously improving the processes, the conversations, techniques, everything that is being reflected on continuously. And sprint and iteration planning is critical as well. It's a concept of the whole team sitting together for a fairly long period of time, about 4 hours at least, to really plan out what's going to be doable in this time frame, to make sure that everyone's very, very clear on the objective and the goal, and then go. That is, like, if we don't have that, we find teams sort of sway all over the place, and they might take a lot of ad hoc work. Now, there are teams that require lots of ad hoc planning, like customer call centers. Now, those teams would then use Kanban, and Kanban is another visualization tool about working on the highest priority item first, and there might be acknowledgement of things that are coming quicker, that are more important than other things, and putting something down and focusing on getting the most important thing done is sort of the guts of Lean and Kanban. But there's heaps more. I mean, these are very, very big disciplines. And also the short iteration concepts, where just making sure that we are shortening the time span for delivering value to our customers. Very quickly, I just want to highlight that while there are many, many different types of Agile, because Agile has grown from create, like from Lean, extreme programming, Kanban. There's a concept of scaled Agile, less DAD, and SAFE, which is the scaled Agile framework. The most of the industry, 75% of the industry, are using Scrum. So if you're going to focus on any discipline to learn or teach or just get your head into a little bit, and it's probably the one with the simplest concepts, is Scrum, and or a Scrum hybrid. But the reality is that's where I would put my money on just for now, just to continue the learnings, the sense of, I guess, what a disciplined Agile team would look like. And Scrum depends on those ceremonies that we're talking: the daily the daily stand-up, the iterative or sprint retrospective, the sprint planning, and the sprint backlog grooming or refinement, which is basically a review every week of what's coming up. So you've also, as you're working in Agile, you are working in the now, but you're also looking at the future and the next 2 sprints. So you're refining and you're preparing what's coming. There's a lot of beautiful information and videos. I've actually added a set of links at the bottom that will lead you to more information if you need to learn about this. So I wanted to quickly I'll pause there for a minute and ask any questions around, if there's any questions. But if not, I'll keep going.
Yeah, Breisi, just something for the participants. What I'll do at the end is I'll summarize, because obviously as a teacher, I've got an experience in Agile. And what I want to do is just at the end summarize where as teachers we could utilize some of this functionality in terms of how we're doing our VCE Unit 3, 4 and our 1, 2 projects. So perfect. I'll kind of wrap it up into a teaching perspective at the end.
Perfect. Yeah. So I guess some of the things that, and I'll skip quickly through this, I've got a set of links at the back and I'll show you, but the reality is because Agile is, I guess, there's quite a lot of tools and practices and things that you can get into. The most important ones to focus on are, from my perspective, is creating transparency and alignment with the team that you're creating. So visualization is important. Roadmaps. So creating a roadmap of where you're heading, very high level, and it's not a project map, it's not a project plan. It's really around setting a goal, visualizing what we're aiming to get to, and breaking it down into very rough chunks of potential value, so that people understand, the team or your students understand where we're going, so they can ask questions and they can ultimately influence that roadmap as well. We use this tool called Jira and Confluence, which is Atlassian is an owned product, and that allows us, it's like a wiki. So anything that allows you to put stuff on wiki-wise, that documentation is important. Jira is a tool that, and I'll go through a bit more example. It's basically just a tool for tracking the projects, which I would suggest more on if you're going to learn anything, potentially if you can. But Trello is the alternative, which is free and a lot easier to take on. Trello, I'll show you in a minute too. Miro or Mural and other tools that allow you to visualize. The other thing that I want to talk about, not just like tools, but the concept of engagement and autonomy is critical in Agile in the industry. Everyone having an equal voice, being able to form small accountable squads, giving them goals and giving them missions, allowing teams to self-form if you need them to. So giving them the passion, the ability, the autonomy to actually form a team to do something that really aligns with their values and that they're really passionate about. Creating team contracts about how they're going to work. So allowing them to say, we're in this together. This is there might be a couple of templates, and going through and answering it together, so they know we're always going to start at 9 a.m. We're going to have this. We might all decide what our values are and make sure that people understand. Like in the industry, for example, we have people that have children, and make sure that we understand what their times are. We create clarity by aligning ourselves with how the team's best going to be able to work, and we work together to enable everyone to have the flexibility, but at the same time also be able to deliver the mission that we have. We celebrate wins and we include fun time all the time, because it creates way more engagement. We're not there just for the work. We're there to actually really interact with our team members, and that builds collaboration. We also work with Microsoft Teams, which allows us in remote working to be able to work together, like similar to Hangouts. And in terms of practices, SAFe, Scrum, and Kanban ceremonies, all the different ones that I mentioned are used. Jira charts, we look at charts and data which informs our planning. How much did we deliver last week? When we slice our work into small components, we call them stories. We look at how many stories of value, how many value points and things did we deliver, and we look at how much we can actually deliver in the future. That's constantly evaluating whether or not we've got too much on our plate, whether or not we should add more or look to and get the team involved. In terms of values and mindset, psychological safety and growth mindset and design thinking are critical for collaboration and in creating that engagement that people want to learn, that people are not scared to fail, that people are looking at using very, very innovative ways to think about the problem and thinking about it from different perspectives, looking to talk to the customer, and creating psychological safety within the team by the concept of equal voice and being empathetic to people and asking questions, even to the point where we get to the point where we're talking about personally about what's going on in our lives. We have check-ins every day at the stand-up. We have how we're feeling, and we know if somebody's not having a good day, so that it allows people to feel safe if they want to talk, if they don't want to talk, and that creates a really nice, engaging, collaborative teams. So there are all these different types of tools that you can use in the industry or in your classrooms, but generally, if we think about Agile at a very fundamental level, because Scrum and others will have lots of pages on how to do different things. If you just distill it to its essence, this guy called Alistair Cockburn, who was one of the people that were involved in the Agile Manifesto write-up, he basically has evolved it to say it's become too complicated, and we need to make it simpler. We just need to focus on the fact that Agile's essence is just around collaboration, working together to deliver something, and then reflecting basically on what has been done and improving. That is literally the essence of all those things. So if I look at what tools I use in those 4 different areas, I look at Miro, for example, which is a tool that allows people to put sticky notes and do a bit of brainstorming and just allow people to, whatever toolkit you have in your especially in these remote learnings, if you're obviously at school, you can use actual sticky notes and do brainstorming and exercises to get people to start collaborating. Use Jira for people to understand where they're up to. So the concept of Jira or story mapping, which is allowing people to break down one big chunk of work up here into smaller stories and then grouping them into how much can we actually deliver in a sprint. Everything by making it visual, by using these tools it encourages people to say, no, I don't think we can do this, or will that actually serve the purpose of the goal, and enables them to actually have that conversation and define the tasks that need to be created, estimate them, and get clarity on what exactly is going to be delivered, so that everyone's aligned and that collaboration keeps working and growing. We then also use things like a wiki, which is a Confluence, which we document our purpose, we document our vision, we document our roadmap, we document any learnings, and we share them back. We collaborate with other teams that are doing similar things in the industry. So I guess the main thing is, if you're teaching the kid, your students to do anything, just any concept of collaboration, anything that you can dig up, these are all tools that are actually going to be taken into the industry. Collaboration is critical now, even more than ever. In terms of delivery, we use Jira again to track our epics, our stories, and our tasks. We use a backlog. We create backlogs. We look at the reports, how we're tracking continuously. We plan and we track. We visualize any blockers, any impediments, any risks. So similar to all project management, risk management and dependency management, but more right there in the minute, where we can actually, technology's actually supported this as well. You can click a quick filter and just show you all the items that are flagged, and you can really hone into what is something that we can all rally together or improve, expedite the flow of work, so that we can move an impediment away and allow the team to keep moving forwards. And we use, again, the wiki and the Confluence to demonstrate our goals and our outcomes, and to demonstrate any pivots that we get. So if we go out and we put something in front of, once we've delivered it, and there is a pivot or a realization that something's missing, or it didn't work as we expected, we then can document and really share these learnings again and again with the rest of the other teams. I might pause there. Is there any questions, Janine?
No, nothing yet.
Okay, cool.
But feel free, everyone, to put your questions in chat, and we'll get to them at the end.
Yeah. In terms of reflection, this is probably the most important aspect of Agile, is the concept of reflecting. In the industry, we do it. We put it into our diaries every week. So every one of these ceremonies that I'm talking about is in our diaries. It's a must. We call them a ceremony, not a meeting, because we're not there just because we have to. We're there because it's part of the essence that continues these conversations. We use reflection time both in retrospectives, and we do things like using Teams to create very engaging, fun retros, which we change it up. We list our actions and we take accountability. We put our actions into our Jira board, and we track those boards. If we say we're going to do something, we do it. So there's this concept of commitment, very strong in Scrum, the concept of we have committed to something. We look out. We also look at graphs. So this one at the top here is a burn down graph, which basically shows you how many points, or we can say stories as well, were initially committed to for the sprint. And then the gray line is the ideal burn. And then every time that we close something, this automatically draws, this happens in Jira, a line basically saying, and then if something comes in, it draws up more scope came in. And it lets us, if we look at our graphs, it lets us reflect on, maybe we have too many of these things midway, extra points coming through, or understanding that wasn't clear at the beginning. So we then reflect and how can we stop that from happening again, so that we can be more predictable, so that we can deliver more things in a not more value, but we deliver more consistently value to the customer. A lot of the times we will find, and no graph's ever perfect, that we have gaps, that we have overflow, and we have to have conversations about value and whether we achieve things, and then we reflect again with the product owner. The roles in Scrum mean that there is somebody who sort of makes the prioritization calls, and we look to see what can be taken into the next sprint or not. And finally, there's the concept of a long-term view of our velocity. So if you look at the green bars, is actually what we delivered, and the grey bars is actually what we committed to. We want to get those two bars really close together, and not necessarily increasing velocity all the time, but just creating that consistency. We want predictability. We find that a lot of the times people think that they can game points and things like that, so they can, next time, instead of me saying that's only 1 point, I'll say it's 2, and suddenly I'm doing more work. That's not the Agile is not about that. It's about everyone understanding what's inside a story, what it actually means, how to deliver it, and therefore we can see what happens. And the graphs tell a story about whether or not we're committing to too much. If we can, if there were people, there might have been a couple of public holidays in there, we didn't actually consider them. We learned. Next time we get better, and there are the things that we focus on in terms of retrospective. So I'll be quick. I realize I'm running out of time. In terms of improvement, we look at try again the graphs, and I'll continue on. But yeah, the reality is that there's so much. I'll let Janine sum this up because I know we've only got about 4 minutes left. But at the end of this pack, I've put a couple of areas links. These are all the different Scrum links to the framework. The Scale Agile framework is a pretty awesome, really well documented, extremely overwhelming to start with, but if you click on any picture, there is a page full of information. So if you want to Scaled Agile basically takes Scrum and says this is how the industry will apply it en masse. It is actually quite a visual guide if you wanted to reference anything. It has lots of different information in there. But again, videos in here if you wanted to have something explained in a better way than I probably have. Any tools, Trello and so forth. There's a few. All of these are fairly free for the use of small groups. So you can actually create small groups of Miro accounts or Trello accounts, and call them Team 1, Team 2, Team 3, and have like like you could actually start creating little boards for your teams here. Articles, a lot of articles about education and Agile and how we're going with different things, and again, inspiration around design thinking and other areas. So I'll pass on over to Janine to sum it up.
Yeah, thanks. I'll just ask a few questions. So Rocco, I'll get to the first point first. Nicholas, if you go back into the foyer, the access to the presentation should be in a link to the foyer where we have the joining instructions. Rocco mentioned how a normal Agile team set up in business. And Breisi, I'll just quickly cover that. Yeah. So generally you have an area of skills. So it might be software development, you might be developing or your IT system. It could also be, and moving into it now, as Breisi mentioned before, we're using this in different areas that we've never really used it before. For example, in finance, and we're using it as a process modeling tool now. So people are actually looking at the customer experiences of what businesses have, and they're looking at ways of really pivoting quickly in the business to deliver really great improvements. And what the design thinking for educators really taps into that. And where I think it's really useful is because if you look at software development, so our students are going into software development environments if they're doing applied computing and software development 1, 2. These are the types of tools that they will be using in industry. And I think if we can go back and start to look at how we apply Agile methodologies into our Unit 1, 2 curriculum, for example, how we use Trello could be a way of students tracking their individual work. We make it visible as teachers by actually having every student with their own Jira or their own Trello, but then we talk every lesson about where they're up to in their project. And Breisi talks about Scrum and sprints. So a sprint for a teacher would be in my history doing data analytics in 3 and 4. So I would be using that as a SAT, and every criteria in that SAT would be a sprint. So I'd be starting to give them the framework, and I'd be working like what we call a product owner in the industry. I would be guiding the students, and I'd be setting them up with their tasks that they need to do. Every person would have their own Trello board, or they could have a joint one, which I managed. And every student should be putting up their tasks that they need to be doing over the week for those projects in particular. This is where the value of Trello. It highlights if different students are working on the same thing, perhaps they need to collaborate and make it visible. But otherwise, students tend to work on their own, and we don't get that value of that student engagement and collaboration. And I think that that's really important. What I do know, however, and I'm conscious of the time, is that Trello has plugins that can turn a traditional Trello board into a Gantt chart. So we do have the requirements within the Unit 3 and 4 to actually talk about Gantt charts. But these tools have a way of bringing that out as Gantt charts. And another, for example, with the innovation projects in Unit 1 and 2, I think it's really valuable to do a Miro board. So I know Breisi's got the link to Miro and has used that in the presentation to show that. But the Miro board allows brainstorming, which is one of the things that we need to do at the heart of Unit 1, 2, those innovative projects. And I think that having a look through some of these links, Hallaberry School and Agile, for example, have been using it for a number of years in their course development and design. So we can, and I've been playing with this in my own Unit 3-4 testing, of looking at next year and how I would run it and making sure that my unit information, and we can use these things like flipped classrooms, providing these experiences, giving them examples through the tools that become part of our own teaching practice and really enable us to give a sense to a student of what it's like in reality. But I do want to just make sure with the people that are here, is there any other questions? So Rocco, how normal Agile teams set up in business? Breisi, do you want to just cover that?
Yeah, so I guess there's so many different variations, I guess, and no one's doing Agile like perfectly, I would say, yet. But the reality is we try really hard to have cross-functional teams. So if we the concept of a value stream, like what's going to give a value to a customer, we look at customer journeys and we think, is it, if we're working in a mobile environment, then a team might be comprised of software developers that data access, and then from some UI developers, maybe we might have a shared resource that has very much, and I say resource, but it's a person, a UX component coming through. We might definitely always have a Scrum Master and a product owner. Somebody who might act, we call them journey experts, for very business analyst type work. There's a lot of research that happens, but the team has to learn about it. And a lot of the times that research can even be done by the person that's developing, or so there's quite a lot of hats people wear nowadays. So depending on the size of the team, whether or not we have the capacity to actually have somebody that goes and does all the analysis of either the business or service design, or goes and talks to users to understand the experience, and then there's the teams that are doing the testing and the development. So as much as possible, we try to create units that are self-serving, that they can actually deliver the value all the way through. But we, especially in large organizations, it's still not all the way there, but we are trying to bring the business more and more and more into mixing it up with software. So at the moment, for example, in one of my teams, I have mostly coaches, and we're a Scrum team. So we've recently changed to Scrum Band because it's working. We're getting a bit of ad hoc work coming through, and then whilst we're all coaches, we do share. We're creating coaching material all the way through. So we've got our own goals, and then we work with a software development team that helps us understand some data, and we work with them on the side. So a lot of the time, it's just about what do we need to achieve, and who can we have access to, and we're creating more and more autonomy within the mission. So as long as we have the freedom to discuss what the needs, and if we've got missing capacity within the skill set within the team, and that gets added and we get secondments. But the reality is the teams are growing more organically now.
Yeah, and I am just conscious of the time, knowing that we have potentially the 3-4 sessions in 10 minutes. So I just wanted to ask if there was anyone in the room that still had questions for Breisi about anything that we've covered in terms of the Agile experience or the tools used, because it's a fantastic way that we can introduce via the tools our students into some of these more advanced and business concepts.
Just while people are getting their questions sorted, can I just thank you again, Breisi, for being part of today, and also Janine for putting in some context there for teachers as well. It's been terrific to have you here, and to bring a little bit of an industry perspective. And sometimes it feels like there's too much of a disconnect between the teaching world and what really goes on out there in industry. So it's great to make these connections. So thank you.
Yeah, thanks. No worries. I was trying to get into Trello without having to log in. There are some free Trello boards if you do Google, and I looked up Agile Game Board, and I think that there's a link already in there. This, for example, this shows you how Trello is designed very simply by columns, and you can all Trello is a way of visualizing